I'm ready to start dropping this into place. Hopefully I'm out of the way. It's just starting to touch the cross member, so I'm going to have to try to push it into place. Need to figure out how to get over there. Okay, I need to drop that down some more. Again, this is probably going to be a somewhat slow process because see if I can get the camera so I don't have to walk around it so much. I'm going to have to lower it and test and lower it and test. Maybe raise it back up. Again, this is would be a nice place to have an extra set of hands. So it would be pretty easy to guide that as someone lowers it. But I work alone. Maybe it's because I don't have any friends. Or let's call them friends that would be a help. Some of the old holes in the back of the engine are not going to be used because there's not a hole in the bell housing. Brought the bolts over that I had the engine on the engine stand with. So if I can get one of these to line up, that will be a helpful guide for the rest of them. Got that in with my hand and I can't get it out. Let's try another hole. It's almost lined up, but not quite. That one's got to go down to line up. That one looks like it's in. Might need to drop that down just a hair. Or let's try this. Try moving that. Those are a little high. Just needs to come down a hair. I don't know if that was too far or not. Okay, it's just sitting on that leg of the hoist. Let's give this a slight pump to get it off of that leg. And I think it should go in. Okay, whoop. That didn't work out too well. I've got 3 bolts started. My idea was that I was going to be able to get some of these started and then push it in, put the real bolts in. They're a lot shorter, and just draw it in. And I do believe that's going to work. So let me find the correct bolts and see what we can do there. Okay, so I heard back from Silver Sport Transmissions, and they said just disregard that bag. They have parts for that in their kit, and they happen to be for the torque converter bolts and the O-ring, and that is for the dipstick. And I did confirm that I had those before I even called them, because I thought that's what they looked like. So one at a time, I'm going to take out these bolts from that were in the that were holding the engine onto the engine stand, and I'm going to replace them with bolts that are actually the bell housing bolts that came out of the original. And I'm just going to put these on lightly first to draw that torque converter nose into the back of the drive shaft, or no, not drive shaft, crankshaft. And then I'll torque them to spec. And I'm going to start, since the two that are most opposite, if you will, of each other on the bell housing, that's where I'm going to start to pull it in, because the others are to the top, and I really don't think that they would draw it in, shall I say this, I don't think they draw it in evenly. Looks like there's one bolt that's not used up at the top. Maybe it never was. Now I will have to take whichever one of these bolts holds the dipstick in. I'll have to take it out. To put the dipstick on. So again, impact wrench needs an extension so that I can reach those things without it being in the way. But I'm going to do it on the lowest power, which is, that's easily not even hand tight, or not hand tight, but I mean just a light use of the wrench. I'm going to go get that extension so I can pull that in. So I'm going to gently do it from one side, then the other, back to the first. Like I said, these bolts are pretty much across from each other. There's actually 4 of them. and I'm gonna crisscross on them just so that I know I get them in evenly. Get that nose of the torque converter into the shaft, the crankshaft, the rear end of the crankshaft. So the one thing that's a little annoying about this Milwaukee gun, and that is sockets tend to come off of it pretty easily. I'm going to do this one next. It appears to be coming in nicely with very little pressure being applied with the gun, the impact wrench. I should have got a bigger extension. I will get that extension and tighten those two top ones lightly. And I will start the two bolts underneath the transmission mount next. Okay. Those are in enough that I can find the torque spec and torque it in. And let's see how well these things line up. One. I think it was a good idea to leave those bolts loose. On the mounting piece here because it gave me the wiggle room I needed to tighten those up, or get those in, I should say. I don't think they gave me a torque spec on these, but just gonna, yeah, maybe I better tighten the ones on the cushion first. And I probably should have kept that should have kept that short extension because I need it for that. Well, I can do the two that are under the cross member while I'm here. You know what might be easier if I just wait to tighten this till after I have the that might be a different size bolt there. Yeah. The thing I don't like about this is that the sockets fall off of the gun. Yep, I have a 5/8 bolt or socket in my hand, and it's good for the ones that go to the mount, but it's not good, it's not big enough for the ones that attach to the cross member into the transmission housing itself, tail housing. So I have to go get me an 11/16 before I can tighten that up. In the meantime, I'm going to look up the torque specs for the bell housing and see what goes there. Okay, no torque specs on the bell housing to engine bolts, so I'm going to do them nice and tight. Yep, so this is 11/16 here. I'll have to check to see if there's a torque spec on these. That would be in the transmission information. Those are going into aluminum there, so I don't want to go too tight on them without knowing a torque spec. Oops. I think the one's under here. That one is going into steel, so I'm going to bump up the power of the impact wrench. Okay, and the other two for that fasten the bumper, those can be tightened pretty tight as well. Let's see what's socket I need to fit that. Because those go into metal inserts in the bumper. Okay. I think that's tight enough in there now that I can take off the hoist, and then I'll do the tightening of the bell housing bolts. I'll actually be able to fold up the hoist. Getting all kinds of room in my shop here now. And I'll be able to, since that's bolted in, I can take the jack out from underneath the engine as well. There's nothing really to be learned here by any of this stuff, so I'm not going to waste your time recording it. I will tighten up those bell housing bolts after I get the hoist out of the way and the jack under the engine. So I think that's going to be it for today. The next video will probably be all the things that I need to attach that I can attach prior to putting the body back on, in terms of at least the transmission. Maybe some of the other stuff as well. Okay, I've tightened those bolts on the bell housing. I still have to check if there's a torque spec for the mounting bolts at the tail. But the one additional thing I wanted to add to this video, at the beginning of it, I made some kind of reference to, I was trying to put or maybe it was at the beginning of the engine install video, but I made a reference that when I did my 74, I put the transmission in first, and then I put the engine in. And on this one, I said I was going to try engine first and transmission second to see if I thought that was easier. And in the end, I do feel that putting the engine in first is a little bit easier because, as I recall on the 74, I had to jack up the transmission front end pretty high so that I could get the torque converter to seat inside the drive shaft and get the bell housing bolts in. And then I had to drop it down onto that motor mount right there. And that wasn't as easy as putting it in, jacking the rear end of the engine up so that I could line up the transmission to the engine and pull it in with the bell housing bolts. So for what it's worth, if you're ever doing a project like this and you have a choice, some people would lift that all at once and install it at once. I thought with me working by myself, that was going to be a little difficult, lining that up and making things fit, and operating the hoist and all that. So I chose to do them engine first, then transmission, and I thought that was a better way than the opposite. Thanks for watching.